What if I told you that a war lasting only 6 minutes reshaped the trajectory of an entire continent? It challenged our understanding of human decision-making under extreme pressure, leaving echoes in how societies perceive risk. 6 minutes. Not 6 days, not 6 months, but 6 minutes. Yet, within that infinitesimal window of time, the collective psyche of nations shifted. History is often imagined as prolonged struggles, battles stretching across months or years, with epic victories or crushing defeats. We think in terms of human endurance, logistics, and strategy. But what if history's most profound turning points weren't always prolonged events? What if they were moments compressed in time, intense in consequence, like a neural spike firing across the vast network of civilization? The 6-minute war, known in historical and psychological circles, offers us precisely this paradox. A war that lasted a fraction of the time we typically associate with decisive conflict. Yet its impact rippled across generations, altering politics, social cohesion, and even collective memory. The events leading to this extraordinary incident were rooted in a world already primed for instability. In the early 20th century, technological innovations, shifting alliances, and economic pressures created a delicate balance. Nations were interconnected like a complex neural network, each node responding to signals from others, interpreting subtle changes in tension, posture, and communication. Even minor perturbations could trigger large-scale reactions. Imagine the human brain responding to sudden, unexpected stimuli. When neurons fire in synchrony, cascades of electrical signals can result in instantaneous decisions, reflexive actions that protect or endanger. Scale this metaphor up. The 6-minute war was a neural misfire at the level of states and societies. Within 6 minutes, a sequence of decisions, misunderstandings, and reflexive responses led to the collapse of a conflict that might otherwise have engulfed the region for months. Understanding why this moment mattered requires a journey into the intersection of history, psychology, and systems theory. The human brain and human society share structural similarities. Both are networks of nodes, connected through channels. In the brain, the signal might be an electrical impulse. In society, it could be a message, a gesture, or an economic shock. Both systems have built-in redundancies, thresholds, and feedback loops designed to maintain stability. When a threshold is crossed, when the intensity of the signal exceeds the system's capacity to regulate it, a rapid reconfiguration occurs. The 6-minute war was precisely such a threshold event. Governments reacted not according to prolonged strategic calculations, but according to reflexive responses, shaped by prior conditioning, fear, and a drive to preserve the coherence of the social network. What looked like chaos on the surface was, in systemic terms, a highly adaptive response to prevent a larger collapse. The war began almost by accident with a misinterpreted maneuver. Opposing commanders, reading this advance through the lens of previous conflicts and ingrained biases, assumed aggression. Orders were given, messages relayed, and within moments, both sides were locked in a cycle of rapid reciprocal action. Modern neuroscience tells us that in moments of acute stress, the brain's amygdala can override rational thought, triggering immediate fight or flight responses. Societies exhibit analogous behaviors. When a perceived existential threat emerges, collective decision-making often bypasses deliberative channels. In the 6-minute war, the social equivalent of the amygdala took control. There was no room for measured diplomacy. There was no time for committees or councils. Each actor operated under the assumption that hesitation would mean annihilation. And yet, paradoxically, it was this very hyper-responsiveness that contained the conflict. By overcompensating for a threat that was not fully real, the warring parties inadvertently prevented escalation. During those 6 minutes, observers noted behaviors that, in hindsight, were profoundly instructive. Civilians who were mere bystanders became critical nodes in the emergent social response. Neighborhoods, towns, and supply chains adapted in real time, improvising protective measures, signaling safe passages, and reinforcing the perception of order amidst apparent chaos. Historians highlight the uncanny resemblance to neural feedback loops. When one node sends a corrective signal, neighboring nodes adjust, distributing the load and preventing systemic collapse. In human terms, this translated to the astonishing efficiency with which evacuation orders were communicated. Aid was organized, and even misinformation was corrected spontaneously. The 6-minute war, brief as it was, revealed a deep truth about human societies. Our capacity for rapid adaptation under duress is far greater than we usually acknowledge. Psychologically, The episode also exposes fascinating insights about perception and collective risk assessment. Humans tend to overestimate the duration and intensity of immediate threats while underestimating long-term vulnerabilities. This cognitive bias, known as temporal myopia, explains why the 6 minutes felt like eternity to participants. Military records indicate that commanders were making decisions as though the entire fate of their nation rested on each second. From a neuropsychological perspective, this mirrors the way neurons respond to high-frequency bursts. The system reacts as if the signal represents a critical, ongoing crisis, even if it is transient. Societies, it seems, can exhibit the same exaggerated threat response, a reflexive calibration that prioritizes survival over accuracy, speed over deliberation. Yet, these reflexive, almost instinctual responses can paradoxically produce stable outcomes. One of the most profound consequences of the 6-minute war was its effect on collective memory and social cohesion. In subsequent years, historians observed a remarkable phenomenon. Communities that participated directly demonstrated higher levels of trust, interdependence, and resilience. It's as though the shared experience of acute, compressed crisis acted as a neural binding event, strengthening the synaptic connections of society itself. Anthropologists liken this to the way humans in small groups consolidate identity through shared rituals or challenges. The war, though brief, became a catalyst for the emergence of new governance practices, more responsive communication channels, and a heightened collective awareness of vulnerability and mutual dependence. What was initially perceived as an existential threat ultimately reconfigured social networks to be more robust, adaptable, and cohesive. From a philosophical standpoint, the 6-minute war challenges our linear understanding of causality and agency in history. We often assume that longer conflicts produce more significant outcomes, yet here, brevity amplified impact. The war's 6 minutes created a compressed feedback loop where decisions had immediate consequences, making every action disproportionately influential. This concentration of effect mirrors concepts in chaos theory, where small initial perturbations can generate outsized outcomes. This was a tangible, measurable event with clear social, political, and psychological ramifications. It forces us to reconsider how we define historical significance. Perhaps duration is less important than intensity, precision, and the adaptive responses triggered within the system. The strategic lessons of this event are equally fascinating. Military historians emphasize that no single side achieved victory through superior firepower or tactical acumen. Instead, the war was resolved through what contemporary scholars call reflexive equilibrium. Both sides reacted instantaneously to perceived threats, overcorrected, and then, through mutual adjustments, arrived at a standoff. In essence, the war was a system recalibrating itself under extreme stress. Neuroscientifically, one could liken it to homeostatic regulation. When a sudden surge threatens to destabilize a network, compensatory mechanisms kick in to restore balance. In social terms, these mechanisms manifested as rapid communication, improvised agreements, and behavioral adaptations that neutralized escalation. Interestingly, the human biases that often undermine rational decision-making were crucial in shaping the outcome. Cognitive shortcuts, heuristics that typically lead to error in complex situations here became adaptive tools. The rapid-fire assumptions, instinctive threat assessments, and immediate defensive maneuvers all contributed to an unexpected equilibrium. It's as if the very flaws in human cognition, when activated under extreme time pressure, produced an emergent intelligence at the level of society. This paradox challenges classical ideas of rationality and suggests that evolution has embedded within us the capacity for adaptive problem-solving. The aftermath of the 6-minute war illuminates another striking principle: the persistence of micro-events in shaping macro-histories. Traditional history often privileges long campaigns, sweeping legislation, or monumental treaties. But this war, ephemeral and intense, demonstrates that transformative events need not be prolonged. They need only trigger a cascade of responses that propagate through social networks, alter collective perception, and reconfigure institutional behaviors. Over time, the effects were visible in policy shifts, urban planning, military doctrine, and cultural narratives. Societies learned not merely from the content of the conflict, but from the experience of compressed, high-intensity decision-making. If we return to the neurological metaphor, the 6-minute war functioned much like a brief, high-amplitude spike in a neural circuit. Such spikes can strengthen synaptic connections, reinforce neural pathways, and increase the responsiveness of the system to future inputs. Similarly, the war reinforced social pathways, improving communication, clarifying roles, and embedding procedural memory within institutions. Leaders who survived the event reported a heightened sense of pattern recognition, a better understanding of human behavior under duress, and an increased capacity for preemptive planning. In a sense, history, like the brain, had learned. The philosophical implications extend further. If brevity can wield such influence, what does this tell us about the nature of time, attention, and significance in human affairs? We often equate longevity with importance, assuming that prolonged effort is required to create lasting impact. Yet the 6-minute war suggests that intensity, timing, and systemic resonance may be far more critical. The universe of human events is less linear than we imagine. It is punctuated by spikes, thresholds, and moments of emergent complexity. Our challenge is to cultivate awareness of these thresholds, to recognize the subtle signals that may presage disproportionate consequences, and to act with both prudence and responsiveness. Consider the twist that most surprises historians. The very behavior perceived as weakness, hesitation, overreaction, or miscommunication was actually protective. The initial misinterpretations that triggered the war were, in a broader sense, system stabilizing. By reacting excessively to perceived threat, societies prevented a slower, more dangerous escalation that could have spiraled beyond control. The episode forces us to reevaluate our intuitive notions of strength and competence. Sometimes reflexive imperfection is not failure but the invisible scaffolding of resilience. What looks like vulnerability in the moment may, in fact, be a mechanism that preserves the integrity of the larger system. Ultimately, the 6-minute war is a lens through which we can examine not just the fragility of human institutions, but also their remarkable adaptive capacity. It demonstrates that history is a complex interplay of perception, cognition, and social dynamics. It teaches us that rapid, high-stakes decisions can produce outcomes that are stabilizing, transformative, and deeply instructive. And it challenges us to think beyond conventional metrics of success. Victory is not always measured in territory or casualties, but in the preservation and evolution of the system itself. As we reflect on this extraordinary historical moment, we are reminded that human societies are more than the sum of their parts. Like neural networks, they learn from experience, adapt to stress, and sometimes, in moments of compressed intensity, achieve outcomes that seem miraculous. 6 minutes may seem infinitesimal in the span of human history, yet it carried the weight of years, decades, and even centuries in its consequences. It prompts a question: how many 6-minute moments are hidden in plain sight, shaping destinies silently, invisibly, yet irrevocably? The lesson of the 6-minute war is thus both scientific and philosophical. It is a testament to human adaptability, a case study in systemic reflexes, and a reminder that time is not the only measure of significance. Intensity, connectivity, and emergent response may matter more than duration. It is an invitation to observe, to learn, and to reflect on the hidden architecture of history. Our minds, like societies, operate under thresholds, feedback loops, and emergent patterns. Recognizing these principles allows us to navigate crises more effectively, to value subtle signals, and to appreciate the profound influence of fleeting moments. In doing so, we honor not only the events of history, but the complex cognitive and social mechanisms that make human civilization resilient. If this story leaves you wondering how so much can be achieved in so little time, you are not alone. The 6-minute war challenges our deepest intuitions about cause, effect, and the mechanics of human behavior. It encourages us to look beyond surface appearances, to consider the invisible scaffolding of resilience that underlies every society, and to recognize the paradoxical ways in which weakness can manifest as strength, chaos can manifest as order, and brevity can wield the power of eternity. History is rarely neat. It is rarely linear. Yet in the flash of 6 minutes, it can reveal profound truths about human nature, systemic intelligence, and the delicate dance between perception and reality. As we navigate our own lives, our own collective challenges, perhaps the most valuable lesson is to remain attentive to the compressed signals, to honor the fleeting spikes of insight, and to recognize that even the briefest events can shape the trajectory of the future. If this narrative reshaped the way you think about history, perception, and human adaptability, share your thoughts in the comments below. Which 6-minute moments in history do you find most fascinating? And what do they teach us about the power of compressed time? Don't forget to like this video if it made you reconsider the way you view historical significance, and subscribe to Past Lens for more explorations. Every moment matters, sometimes more than we can ever imagine.